Good evening. On behalf of the Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education, I'd like to welcome everyone in the audience and our viewers on YouTube to the December 2nd, 2024 work session for the Cabarrus County Board of Education and officially call the meeting to order. At this time, we will move to agenda item 2.01 for our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will move to agenda item 3.01. I'd like to call our Director of Communications and Public Information, Mr. Phil Firth, to the podium to honor our outgoing Board of Education members, Mrs. Denise Adcock and Mr. Brian Floyd.
Good evening, Dr. Kopicki, members of the Board of Education. Thank you to everyone here and on the live stream for joining us tonight. This evening, we take a moment to reflect on the service and dedication of two exceptional individuals who have contributed to the success of our school district and the students we serve. Tonight, we recognize and express our heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Denise Adcock and Mr. Brian Floyd, who are concluding their service on the Cabarrus County Board of Education. Ms. Keisha Sandage and Ms. Laura Blackwell-Lindsay were unable to be with us tonight. At this time, I'd like to ask both Ms. Adcock and Mr. Floyd to come forward with any family members in attendance and invite Dr. Kopicki to join us at the front of the dais. Thanks. Let's just use the green dot. It works for everybody else. First, we honor Ms. Denise Adcock, who has dedicated 4 years to this board, including the past 2 years as chairperson. Denise, your commitment to our students, staff, and families has been evident in every decision you have made and every initiative you have supported. You brought compassion, thoughtfulness, and unwavering determination to ensure that our schools remain a place where every child has the opportunity to thrive. Your focus on excellence and your advocacy for the well-being of our students have left an indelible mark on our district. From navigating unprecedented challenges like a pandemic to championing innovative solutions like Destination 2025, your leadership has been a beacon of stability and vision. On behalf of this board and the entire Cabarrus County Schools community, thank you for your service and your lasting impact. Next, we recognize Mr. Brian Floyd, who has served this board with dedication over the past 15 months. Brian, your time with us, though brief, has been meaningful and impactful. Your thoughtful perspectives and commitment to serving our students and community have enriched our discussions and informed our decisions. Even in your short tenure, your contributions have been significant, and your willingness to step up and lead during a critical time speaks volumes about your character. Brian, we thank you for your service, your insights, and the legacy of leadership you leave behind. Denise and Brian, as you move forward, please know that your dedication and hard work have made a difference. You have been voices of hope and champions for education, and your efforts have ensured brighter futures for the students of Cabarrus County. As a resident of Cabarrus County, I'd like to personally thank you for your willingness to make Cabarrus County Schools a great place for parents to raise a family. As a former CCS parent and current staff member, thank you for your dedication to always putting students first. Finally, as a former civics and government teacher, I deeply appreciate your commitment to civic service. Since April 1841, members of the Cabarrus County community have come together as a unified board to guide the education of our students. Your dedicated efforts uphold this 183-year-old tradition of public service, ensuring that our children receive a first-class education and carrying forward a legacy of educational excellence into our community. On behalf of the board, the staff, and the families of our district, we extend our deepest gratitude and best wishes for all that lies ahead. Thank you both for your remarkable service. Let's give them a round of applause as we celebrate their achievements and contributions.
Next on the agenda will be item 4.01, the swearing-in ceremony for newly elected board members. At this time, I'd like to call the Honorable Judge Marty McGee to the podium for tonight's swearing-in ceremony. Melanie Freeman, would you please approach the rostrum with Judge McGee?
Hello. First, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to have this honor. If you would like to please step forward if we can bring this. I don't know if you have anyone that would like to join you, or if so, you're welcome to.
Do you like to join me?
You got 30 minutes. All right. If you would please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right.
That's gonna be hard.
You can hold that for you. Thank you. And I'm going to say your oath, and at the end of it, you just simply say I do, if you're ready to take your oath. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge your duties as a member of the Cabarrus County Board of Education, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Greg Mills, would you please go to the podium?
Hello. Would you like someone to join you? Thank you. Hello. Stand on this side. It's a little easier to get that left hand on the Bible. All right. You place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I'm going to administer your oath, and you'll just simply say I do. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge your duties as a member of the Cabarrus County Board of Education, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Catherine Moore, would you please go to the podium, please?
Would you like for someone to join you? All right. All right. Keep your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right, and if you'll please respond to what I do. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge your duties as a member of the Cabarrus County Board of Education, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And Rob Walter, would you please go to the podium, please?
Please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. If you'll please respond by saying I do. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina not inconsistent therewith? That you will honestly, faithfully, and impartially discharge your duties as a member of the Cabarrus County Board of Education, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of being here, and thank you all for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir. Thanks again.
The next order of business is item 5.01, and we will elect our Board of Education chairperson. At this time, I will open nominations for Cabarrus County Schools Board Chair.
Oh, sorry. I nominate Sam Treadaway.
I nominate Rob Walter.
Okay, hang on a second. So, Mr. Eisenhower, the first nominee was Sam Treadway. Before we move forward, do I have a second on that nomination?
So I think that the next item will just be to have a motion to close the nominations.
Okay, without any seconds.
That's
Okay,
right.
okay.
We need a motion and a second to vote.
Okay.
I make a motion to close the
Nominations.
nominations.
Yep.
Okay, very
And then
good.
do a vote on that.
Got it. Okay, I will declare the nominations for the school board chair closed, and we will now call for votes.
Yeah, I would
on-
I would go ahead and do a vote
Okay,
on that.
just one.
Sure.
Trying to be formal.
Sure.
As Sam Treadway was nominated first, we will vote on him first. If you vote for Sam Treadway to be the school board chair, please raise your hand. Two.
That's two. And we also need a no vote as well.
Yep.
So all those who
All
would
those,
vote-
all those who vote no for Sam Treadway, please raise your hand. Okay. As Rob Walter was nominated second, we will vote on him for board chair. If you vote for Rob Walter to be the school board chair, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those no votes, please raise your hand. Okay. Having received a majority vote, Rob Walter is elected school board chair of the Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education.
So that goes over to me.
Yeah.
So then item 5.02, election of the board vice chair, open for nominations.
I nominate Pam Escobar.
Any others?
I nominate Greg Mills.
Any others? Okay, so we have two nominees. So we closing the nominations.
I move to close nominations.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a second, and we will, I guess, go on to the first names. That was Pam Escobar for vice chair. If you're in favor of Pam, please raise your right hand. So we have two. Those opposed? 4. So Greg Mills was our second nominee. And if you are going to vote for Greg, please raise your right hand. Those opposed? Again, 4-2. So Greg Mills, congratulations, you are our board vice chair. So just in time here, we have a 5.3, which is a brief recess. So we'll take a recess at this time, probably 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll get back to the setting of the agenda, which will be the next item. Okay, so we're back again for our work session here on December 2nd. And the item that we're on now is 6.01, which is the setting of our agenda or adopting our board agenda for the evening. I know there needs to be one change, William, about the signing of the Code of Ethics.
That's right.
Can you?
So, per Board Policy 2120, all newly elected board members will sign a code of ethics. So the other board members have signed this earlier this year, but the 4 newly elected ones will be signing it this evening. So I think if you wanted to, you could add a new section 8.01, which would just be the signing of the code of ethics.
Okay, so we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to add that to the agenda. Now we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda discussion about replacement of newly appointed County Commissioner Laura Lindsay Blackwell's seat.
Okay, so we have a request to add an item to the agenda for the discussion of replacing the seat vacated by Laura Lindsay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Do we want to wait till next meeting? Because we really need some legal advice on some of that too.
Yeah, so you could do it tonight. Alternatively, we could have the discussion at next Monday's business session to discuss the process. We could entertain the process that we did back in 2023 when Tim seat was replaced. So we could have that discussion tonight, or if you guys want more time to consider it before discussing it, we could add it as an agenda item to the next Monday night's board meeting.
Okay, is there any appetite for adding it next week and listening to having our attorney talk to us?
I don't have a strong opinion, but we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay, we're discussing, it's still a discussion item. We'll vote on it in a minute.
Yeah.
Any input on that?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
If we're going to discuss a process, is that going to be given to us to discuss?
It was not on the current agenda, so it's not prepared to discuss. It would be for next week.
I can. I can be prepared to discuss what we did last time if you want to have that discussion tonight. Alternatively, like I said, it's you could have it next Monday night as well. But if the board's so inclined to discuss it tonight, we can discuss it tonight.
Okay, any more input?
The reason why I wanted to have the discussion, I'm not saying that we would necessarily take action, obviously this is a work session, but I just thought that if we come up with a process, it has to be discussed openly, and that way at the business session, whatever the process is, we can vote on something. We're prepared next meeting to vote, whereas if we don't have the discussion today, we don't give the public the opportunity to understand what the options on the table are. So the goal is so that the public can speak at the public hearing and know what their input might be for that process. So to be open and transparent.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, so the motion on the table here is to add the replacement discussion to the agenda tonight. Those in favor, raise your right hand. 2, yeah. I think I'll wait. Okay, so we have 2 in favor. Are those opposed? 1, 2, 3. All right, so the motion does not pass. So now let's go back to the original motion of setting the agenda. And we have a motion and a second for that?
I think we needed to have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended, adding the new 8.01 with the signing of the Code of Ethics.
Okay, thank you for that wording. So do we have a motion as Williams proposed?
I make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, let's vote for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
Motion is 4-2. Agenda passes. Okay, so we'll move on to 7. Section 7, which is 701, is the board chair comments. And I'll be short, really. It's a blessing and an honor to be able to be the board chair and serve in this capacity. My priorities really are just respectful, honest communication, transparency, and valuing community input. I know we have a lot of challenges that we're going to be facing together in the next year, but there's also a lot of good ahead. And I'm excited about the 3 new board members that we have. They're all very well prepared. You've seen them here in meetings for months. And they bring new perspective and new focus. So I think that's all a good thing. And I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. So with that, we'll move on to 7.02, which is superintendent comments.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. It's my pleasure to welcome Melanie Freeman, Greg Mills, and Catherine Moore as the newest members of the Cabarrus County Board of Education. We are excited about the fresh perspectives and dedication you bring to our district. Additionally, I extend heartfelt congratulations to Rob Walter on his re-election to a 4th term on our board. Your continued leadership is a testament to your commitment to our students and community. On behalf of our entire district, I'm delighted to welcome you to the Cabarrus County Schools family. Your commitment to serving our students, families, and community is deeply appreciated. We are excited to collaborate with you as we work to build upon the success of our schools. Your leadership will play a vital role in shaping the future of education in our district. And I look forward to partnering with you to ensure that every student has the opportunity to thrive in our community. Together we can continue to achieve greatness and wonderful things for the Cabarrus County Schools. We will all continue to work to be the best school district in the nation. Again, congratulations on being on the Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education. Senior parents, it's time to fill out the free application for federal student aid, better known as the FAFSA form. Any seniors and their parents who want to see about getting help for paying for college need to fill out the FAFSA form. It is now open online at www.studentaid.gov. Our high school exams are scheduled to be administered beginning Monday, December 16th through Friday, December 20th. Traditional calendar high schools will dismiss at 11:30 on December 16th through the 19th. On Friday, December 20th, 2024, all Cabarrus County schools will have early dismissal. Please check with your individual school for more specific exam schedules. You may view the early dismissal schedule for Friday, December 20th by visiting our district website and searching for bell schedules in the I Want To tab. Program choice applications for the 2025-2026 school year will close on December 15th, 2024. Parent notification of placement will occur in the online family dashboard the week of February 3rd, 2025. Parents will have until Monday, February 17th, 2025 to make a decision and accept a seat in their online dashboard. Any seats not accepted within this window will be forfeited to the waitlisted students. For the application link, please again visit our district website. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is 7.03, which is our attorney comments with Mr. Eisenhower.
I don't have any comments this evening.
Nice and quick, thank you. Moving on to section 8, which is report section. 8.01 is policies for first read. Do we have Dr. Sandy Ward with us?
We were going to add in the new 8.01, which is the
sorry,
signing of the Code of Ethics. Sorry about that.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back to you. So 8.01 is the signing of the Code of Ethics, and again, it's going to go back to William because do you have those?
I do. I have those with me. So for everybody's benefit, what you'll be signing tonight is the Code of Ethics, and per Board Policy 2120, which is Code of Ethics for school board members, all newly elected board members are expected to sign a Code of Ethics statement that includes the provisions of this policy at the organizational meeting of the board, which is tonight. The board recognizes that collectively and individuals, all members of this board must adhere to a Code of Ethics as required by state law. So this is a code of ethics that our newly elected board members sign every 2 years. We went through the process and had this re-signed earlier this year, just because the prior version of the code of ethics was missing a few items. But I'm going to hand these out right now to Melanie. That's yours. Greg, this is yours. Rob. You will see in this code of ethics that the language actually comes verbatim from the policy itself. The section A is the board member ethical requirements, and those are the standards that guide each board member in the performance of his or her official duties. Section B is specific board member commitments. In order to implement the above standards, each board member commits to the following. So if anyone has any questions, happy to try to answer those.
Are we able to add this to board docs so the public can see it as well? Yes. Okay. Because I'd rather not read the whole thing.
Yes.
All right, so sign it and hand it back to you? Or
Yes,
or
please.
4 o'clock?
There you go. Blue one right here.
Okay, we can move on to 8.02 now. Policies for first read. Dr. Cindy Ward.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Kopicki, Mr. Snell. Welcome to all of our new board members. You've finally been seated. I've been seeing you here in our meetings for months, and tonight's your first night, so welcome. I'm going to try to ease you in gently this evening. We have 4 required policies that we're going to take a look at, and I just want to give a quick reminder. A required policy is something that is vetted through our North Carolina School Board Associations and our legal teams there, and they are backed up by a legal authority. So it's either the General Assembly, one of the state board policies, different things like court cases, different things like that. So whenever we see required, that means it is in law and we need to add it to our policy. So we decided to try to start you off a little easy this evening. So we'll start off with policy 2302, which is remote participation in board meetings. Now this one makes a couple of changes that I did receive some questions about from Mr. Mills. And I wanted to ask Mr. Eisenhower if he wanted to kind of jump in and share our conversation from earlier.
Thank you, Cindy. So a question had come up in regards to this policy 2302. There is a change that is strongly recommended by PLS that we would not allow voting done remotely. That would be a change from our current policy, which does allow for remote voting. In general, we discourage remote voting. Obviously, we encourage all board members to be present physically at the board members whenever they're able to do so. There will be times when they can't, travel, sickness, family obligations. We do allow right now for remote participation virtually. Those board members are allowed to participate in discussions, ask questions, fully participate. The question has been, do their votes count, 1? And then 2, if they're virtual, does that count towards quorum? The proposed changes to this policy would say that someone who is remote does not count for quorum and their votes do not count. A lot of these changes were made because of a recent Anson County court case by the Court of Appeals. It does still allow, if there's a state declared emergency, you would be able to do remote voting and count towards quorum. So for instance, during COVID, we did have a state declared emergency and remote voting was allowed. But absent that, the way this policy with this changes would be that if you're not here, you can't vote. And that this is, some of these, like Sandy said, are required. Some are strongly recommended. This is just strongly recommended. So if the board decides they want remote participants to be able to vote, you can do so legally. The risk is, in light of this Anson County case, is that if someone were to contest that vote, it could be that the remote vote's thrown out. So that's the risk. It's not an automatic that it gets thrown out, but it's just that there's a risk of it. So the idea is, let's just count the folks who are physically present, their votes, but allow the other folks to participate however they can virtually.
Discussion on that, Pam?
Dr. Ward, the question I had, and maybe our lawyer has to answer this too, was why remove local emergency? So I recognize that, a state declared emergency in most weather and that sort of thing, but my concern of removing local, if there was a tornado, for example, that could be just focused on Cabarrus County, and it wouldn't be a state emergency. So I guess why is local being removed?
So that was specifically in response to that case.
Okay.
Because that case, they tried, Anson County declared a local emergency, which the court deemed wasn't a sufficient emergency. And so they declared an emergency so they didn't have to give the 48 hours notice for the meeting. And so the idea here is, if you had a locally, could someone abuse that? Now, a lot of this is more for the county commission than for us as a Board of Education, but I think they're trying to get consistent there. But I understand your question. But the idea would be that I think there was just some risk that someone might declare an emergency such that they could try to skirt some rules, as the court held in the Anson County case.
Mr. Treadway?
If you recall, we were at the same session at the North Carolina School Board Association conference. The attorneys were there. I'm kind of surprised that they say strongly recommended. The wording that they had there was that it was more than strongly recommended, that it was a necessity, and that due to the Court of Appeals, the decision that occurred there, there was quite a bit of conversation about that as being seen as a mandate.
I do think that's right. I mean, my recommendation would be that you don't allow remote voting. Like I said, it's not specifically prohibited, but it is strongly recommended by PLS, and in my opinion would be the same, that we don't allow that. Thankfully, you guys have not had an issue with this. You guys have, when you've had somebody out, you've had one person out. Where this becomes a bigger issue is if you have 3 or 4 folks out trying to vote remotely. It's just, the question would be, if you take action and move forward on that, you just open yourself up. If you ever got sued, was that a valid action or not? That's the risk.
Pam, go ahead.
And then I have another question, because if someone was ill and like long term, so if somebody up here couldn't be here for 3 months in a row, but they could maybe participate from a hospital bed or something like that, are we saying that they could also not vote then?
Right.
Okay.
But we can also suspend the rules if we want
Correct.
majority vote
Yes.
in that case. Anybody else on question on this policy? Okay, back to you.
Okay. So are we moving forward? Okay. All right. Our next policy is 3410, our testing and assessment program. And there were some updates based on the State Board of Education policy. Those were required, followed by updating some legal references.
No questions on that one?
Okay. Next, we have policy 3460, which is the graduation requirements. There were some updates to the course unit tables to reflect current state board requirements. And then we also updated the legal references.
Yes, Pam.
Thank you. I noticed that this is very detailed, and in the past it hasn't, and we've just maybe referred to the law. Is there a reason why the table is so, like, up to date? Like, it didn't look like it was just one addition. There's like a whole new chart that's added, and I recognize that laws change. But normally, wouldn't we just have a reference to it? Is there a desire to be that specific there?
Can you bring it up on the screen?
So if you look at the first couple of tables, it talks about exempting students in math, having to take math 1 and 2. And then it adds earth and environmental. I think when you go way down, I think they're talking about current 8th grade students. And Mr. Palmer, if I'm not saying this right, you can help me with this. Current 8th grade students now have an arts elective. There's 6 electives that need to be taken in order to graduate with a 22 credit diploma. Now the arts is going to be required in one of them, so I know that was added in. It doesn't add any more credits, but it's one of the 6 that has to be taken. And then before the PLS came out, we also added the CPR. We talked about, well, the prior board members would remember, we talked about adding CPR, which is taken in 8th grade, but it is a graduation requirement. So in all the boxes, we had to go and update those things.
So we have a local recommendation column, but there's nothing in it. Why is that there? Do we need it?
No, I think we
Did
go,
we
we
have
go by
something?
state, right? We go by the state. Yeah.
Okay, any other
We
questions?
still have our, 27 credit diploma, but then the state has also said now that students can graduate with 22 credits.
That's there for the board. If the board wants to make any adjustments or recommendations, that's just a normal way they make the framework of the chart.
Any other comments on this?
Questions or comments? All
Next,
right.
I guess.
And our last policy is 6140, student wellness, and revises language to conform with changes to the uniform guidance. And we're looking at the state board policy as the legal authority there.
Can you bring that one up?
Yep, 6140, yep. You can see the additions there in red. And there are some strikeouts.
This is the one that had the high school edition about, go back up, I guess. Go back up to the next prior page. Right there you have an additional red with says beginning of the 2025-26 school year, students in grade 9 through 12 must be provided with 60 minutes of physical activity weekly. Do we do that now, or how do we implement
We
that?
pretty much do that already. Yeah.
That's what?
We pretty much do that. And then with our healthy attestation clause that we sign, K8, and then I think adding in high school because they do have PE and health.
So this isn't another burden or a way that our high schools are going to have to adjust to make sure that's complied with?
It's required either way, so if it's law, we're going to find a way to get it done.
Okay, did we cover 40, 40, and 4120?
Yeah, we're going to get to those. Those are we finished here?
Okay. Great.
So I know you looked at this for me, and maybe this is just limited to me, but that link in section B3, it doesn't go to a website for me. I could, site cannot be reached error.
Gotcha. And that will be updated. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay.
All right. Now we have 2 technical edits. The first one is 40-40-7310, staff-student relations, and it basically just corrects a typo. So just so you know, technical edits are usually adding or changing legal references, spellings. It just kind of gets the language real tight. So those are not things that substantively change the body of the policy. So we try to throw in a couple of tech edits each time. So that first one had a tech edit, and we just took out the word sub and subsection. And we updated the legal references. And then in the second one, 4120, we updated the legal references.
Do you have any questions or discussions on that? Is there any need to discuss this next week? Nope. Okay, thank you, Dr. Ward.
All right.
It's a report. I guess consent, I guess. And that again is a first read, so there's an opportunity for the public to review those and send us any comments or suggestions as we will have a second read next month. So next item is our monthly budget summary, and we have Mr. Philip Penn. Welcome.
Evening, Mr. Chair, fellow board members. Good to be with you again tonight. Since I know this is first time through this for a few of you, the financial reports are broken up into two sections. The section I'm doing now is just a general update kind of on where we are versus our budget. Anything that we've highlighted that, you know, are particular areas of concern or benefit that we want to call out for the board's attention. This is information only. It does not require a vote. The budget amendment that I'll present later on tonight is actually the one that does require a vote. Anytime you change a budget, it requires the board's approval. You'll see in the memo that accompanies this, I called out two things in particular. The second one of which, frankly, is more significant for us. I've been talking for a few months now at the board meeting about how the state changed to a funding and arrears model. And that impacts the districts that have growth in their daily membership, ADM, or student count, if you want to take the shorthand version of that. House Bill 10, which was approved back through a veto override on November 19th, has $95 million worth of statewide funding for ADM growth. It affects districts like Cabarrus, where we've experienced growth in our student count versus the prior year. There was a conference call that was held between Department of Public Instruction, the Business Services Office, and school CFOs on November 26th, so right before the Thanksgiving break. And what they have said is, even though they've known that this has been coming for a while, the release of these funds to school districts has been delayed because they do not have what's called the principal's monthly report for all districts that actually helps determine what amount of money they're going to be giving to each LEA, or local education authority. Because of that, and because it's the best of the first or second month that will determine the funding level, what they indicated on that call was that they were going to release 60% of the funds based on the first month's data, but they didn't actually give a time frame for when that 60% of the funding was going to come through. So we keep pinging away at this, and we get email alerts and everything else every time there's a change in the allotments to the school district. I'm certainly hopeful that we get that fairly soon, because it'll allow me to at least get a reference point on what the 100% funding should look like, if I can tell what 60% should look like. But we're hopeful that it happens soon. I mean, clearly other CFOs have raised this as a priority with the Department of Public Instruction, so they know it's an important issue for us. But bluntly, the hurricane impacted a lot of this. There are school districts that have not been able to comply with their reporting requirements because of the fact that they've been impacted by the hurricane. So it's not any ill intent to hold back on why these funds haven't been released yet. But it's just an unfortunate circumstance, because I think this is a significant amount of money for Cabarrus County schools. So, second thing I just wanted to point out, based on a board comment that came through email, one way to think about this report, if we could scroll down a little bit so we can see the exhibit. Maybe go to the other one if we could see it so that it's sort of right side up. No, didn't work that way. If we could flip that so that thank you. When we look at the very last column here, the percentage that's unencumbered. One of the reasons we've started providing this to the board is it serves as a proxy for about where you are with spending on each of these budget line items during the course of the year. This particular month, the financials ran through November 19th. If we were to say that's the full of the month of November, that would be 4 months. You'd expect to be about a third of the way through your spending over the course of that, 4 out of the 12, with remain eight or 2/3 left. So I would take that as a proxy for saying, okay, for these line items, how close am I to having about 65% of the funding left unencumbered at this point? I will tell you it's not perfect, right? Because there are things that are timing differences, like when you pay for insurance renewals on July 1st, when you encumber certain things like utilities at the beginning of the year. But it's a pretty decent proxy to say, are we drifting close to something that will cause an area of concern for us? But, as I look through the remaining balances on these, I don't really see something that pops out as a concern for me at this point, other than the one that I also highlighted in the memo earlier. So, and that's one where I think it will come back to the board within the next month or two on some suggestions on how we can handle legal expenses going forward. As a result of that, I guess I would say we continue to be in relatively good shape, but just with a couple more I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed once we know this full state allotments as they drop, particularly with regard to that ADM funding.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Penn? Go ahead.
I really like the column you added with the percentage of encumbered. That I think is very helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else?
Okay.
Thank you for the report.
Thanks.
So we're going to move on to our items for consent or action for next week's meeting.
I got an update for you.
Oh, construction. I keep jumping. I'm sorry.
If you don't
Let's
want
not
me, I'll go sit back down.
trying to make a record time here, but construction update. Brian Cohn, welcome, and I'm sorry for skipping over that item.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Kopicki. This is your actually last couple month update on construction. And for those of you that are new, if you have questions on the fly, feel free to catch my eye. We'll talk about it while we have it, or we'll have a chance at the end to ask questions that you may have, okay? So we'll start with the Coultram Webb Beverly Hills Replacement Schools project. So we're grateful to be able to say that the funding for this project was approved at the November 12th LGC meeting in Raleigh. The commissioners also had approved some advanced funding as a part of that project for GMP1 that included 3 bid packages that were required for us to keep proceeding forward to stay on schedule. Those bid packages were O2A, which was selective building demolition, the O5A structural and miscellaneous steel package, 26B, which just is our generator equipment because of the lead time. And the totals of those 3 bid packages for that first GMP were valued at about $5.23 million. So we were also fortunate on the 13th to get in front of the Historic Preservation Commission, and they unanimously approved the certificate of appropriateness for the school project. This allows us to proceed with issuing the city zoning permit to the City of Concord as a part of that process. We also had several families express support for this project during that HPC meeting, which helped to create a very positive environment for the commission and reinforcing the decisions that they were making. And then tonight we'll be bringing before you the second GMP, which is the bid package 31A complete site work, so that the contractor in the next couple of weeks can get started on the site work part of this project. That image there to your right, that just represents some of the documents we provided to the Historic Preservation Commission. A lot going on there, colors for the trees and the plants. You can see the yellow representing the light illumination from the site lighting. That was a part of the request from the staff at the City of Concord. Identified some of the turf areas that we intend to put on there, the playgrounds on the western side of the campus you can see. They also, as a part of that request to the Historic Preservation Commission, was to identify what the finishes were going to be on this school. Obviously, with this being a prototype of the R. Brown project, we were able to capture actual images of what that school was going to look like, and then insert some of the differences in the materials. Although they're the same finishes, the colors obviously will be different than what we did at R. Brown McAllister. There was also a request from city staff to identify what the car rider length looked like. So this was the map we provided them that was a part of the packet that was presented to the commission. And you can see when we double queue coming in off of Grove there, we have just under about half a mile of queuing on site for this project. And these are just some aerial updates from the first of last week, I believe, is when these were taking. You can see the fire truck there in the foreground. So we did partner with City of Concord Fire and Police, and they were able to perform some training operations in those buildings prior to the demolition taking place. These are just some aerials of the campus as it was before demolition started. And demolition did get started the Tuesday of last week, actually, and picked back up today. They broke for the holidays. Any questions on the project? Yes, ma'am.
How long will demo take?
It's probably, the total demolition will probably be a 4 to 6 week process.
And what is the restrictions or around there so that people in the community aren't entering the
So if you
area?
ride by now, the site is completely encompassed in construction fencing with screening on it. And there are 2 access points, one off of Grove, that are being managed by the construction manager at Risk Rogers. Our primary entrance for construction activity comes in off of Franklin. Their demolition efforts are focused right there, kind of in that the old gym area, so that we can get more circulation space around the campus. But without going through those 2 gates, you can't get into the campus anymore. Anything else? All right, we'll jump over to the Mary Frances Wall project. So demolition work has been completed for all these structures on this site, with the exception of the 95 building that will be repurposed for new use as a part of this project. At this time, the contractor has demobilized from the site until we get to the next phase, which will be the site work. Currently, our CM at risk, Lyles Construction, is going through pre-qualifications with their trade partners, and that continued through the end of last week. Currently, our balance of construction bids will be due on January 6th, that we will be bringing to this board for approval at the February meeting. Right now, we're going through the procurement of furniture vendors for this project, because these projects aren't as large as our normal schools, and so that process will need to start sooner rather than later. Plus, with this being a pre-K facility, there'll be a lot of engagement with the school staff over at Mary Frances Wall as to what their needs are in each of these individual rooms. Also, we continue to track an August 26th opening date for this project. There you can see the 95 building on the left, and the remaining buildings have been demolished on site. Image on the left obviously is the old boiler room there, and the hole in the ground looks like a basement. That was the kitchen area and cafeteria space, and then on the right hand side were the 2 classroom wings. And then these are 2 of our most updated BIM models showing what the elevations of this building will look like. The one on your left is the model showing it looking at the 95 portion back towards the upper portion of the campus, and then the image on your right shows the new front entrance that will come in off of Palisade. Any questions on Mary Frances Wall? Moving on. So next project is the Opportunity School project. So we did recently, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, hold a trade partner engagement session at the Performance Learning Center campus, which is where this building will be located. Had very good turnout with over 30 different subcontractors being interested in this project. They too were pre-qualifying all their subcontractors and trades through the end of November. And the bidding for this project will take place on January 15th of next year. Currently, we are in the process of reviewing the construction documents with the design team. Our facilities team is reviewing these construction documents so that as we get into finishing up the design work, we've made sure and capture any questions or concerns that our facility teams may have. We're also going to be holding a formal pre-bid meeting for this project on December the 11th that will be held at the PLC as well. Currently, the grading operations for this project look to take place the middle of February after we get the balance of construction GMP approved. And this building as well will be on track for an August 26th opening date. These are some of the models that were put together by Morrisburg, the architects that we're working with. Any questions on the Opportunity School? Yes, ma'am.
Is there outdoor space for the students?
Yes, ma'am. So we are sharing the outdoor space with the Performance Learning Center. They have a basketball court, an outdoor picnic area, and covered sheltered area. That was part of the attractiveness of using this site, is we could share some of those amenities. Real quick on the tennis courts project. So Cox Mill High School was our last court refurbishment project. It is completed. We did include as a part of this project new net posts and nets. We're also going to be striping pickleball lines on these courts as well as the Northwest Cabarrus courts in the coming weeks as weather allows. And again, I'd like to reiterate that these courts are going to give us over 15 years of life without having to make any structural repairs. We were every 2 or 3 years going in and making repairs on tennis courts just to keep them playable and safe. Any questions on Cox Mill? Yes, ma'am.
How do the tennis coaches feel about the
Oh,
pickleball?
They love them. Oh, pickleball?
Well, I mean that you're going to put those
I'm not going
lines?
to speak to that.
Okay. But with the idea then, these courts are being used for gym classes and
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Yes.
So there's it's not just tennis teams that are using these.
That is correct. Not
Okay.
just tennis. Thought I'd throw in just a quick update on Northwest Cabarrus High School. So we are 95% complete on our construction documents, and we're going to obviously push pause at this stage until we establish a funding source for this project. Just to reiterate, we do continue to see an escalation of 3 to 5% annually in the construction costs. So the further out this gets delayed, the more expensive it does become. And just to note, this is at least at minimum a 33-month project from start to finish once you start clearing land. But these are some of the models that were put together by Morrisburg, the design team. Any questions on Northwest Cabarrus?
Right. Go ahead, Greg.
So I'm reaching back a little bit here, and I could be wrong, but I think 2 years ago we requested funding for this school, and the county commission didn't include that in the budget. And then last year we didn't request funding for the school because the realignment and the long-term capital improvement plan didn't set that as a priority. So is this a school that we expect to request funding for this year?
So we will have conversations over the funding stream for this school, yes, and probably in the next budget cycle and what that looks like. I think to be clear, we didn't request it this time because we were told we would not be able to fund that.
Okay.
So,
You want to add some? Dr. Kapicki?
Yeah, that's accurate, and I do not have the capital plan in front of me. The square is what I call it. But we have asked repeatedly for that school to be funded. That will be the #1 project going forward this year for our capital project request. So we'll bring that to the board, present that capital project with you. You'll see both the short-term and long-term requests. But I can tell you that the administration will bring and recommend to the Board of Education that the Northwest High School be the #1 project from a capital projects plan moving forward.
Any questions?
And that was all I had. So are there any questions that you thought of that you didn't get
So
asked?
do you post this to your website? Is it on the website so people can see it or get an update?
Yes, sir. So we post our weekly wrap-up that we provide every 2 weeks on our website, the construction website, as well as the board update reports. They're on our website.
Okay, so those interested in seeing where we stand with our projects, they can
Sure.
either check the board
Yeah,
docs.
we have a couple of our projects that have enough context to them. We have Engage page set up for them too on the Engage
Specific for the
website.
project, and that's,
Correct.
they find that how?
Just go to Mr. Furr.
Okay, engage with CCS.com is what he said, so. All right, appreciate it, don't go anywhere, I guess.
Yep, I'm not.
Moving on to our
Stay
next
put.
item, which is 9.01, which is the guaranteed maximum price amendment for Culture and Web Beverly Hills site work
Yes.
that you had just talked about.
I did. So we did receive bids, as I had mentioned, for the site work bid package, which is 31A for the Culture Web project on Tuesday, November the 19th. We did have 5 bidders submit bids as a part of this package. Currently, the schedule has them mobilizing the next couple weeks to begin erosion control measures around the site. Tonight, we are requesting the approval of the GMP amendment in the amount of $7,165,477 for the 31A site work package that's a part of the Culture Web Beverly Hills STEM Replacement School project. There's a lot of backup information as well as the GMP amendment that was a part of your agenda item packet. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Cohen on this item? Mr. Greg?
So this site work was included in the preliminary GMP that we already,
It is, yes. So all of the bid packages were included as a part of the preliminary GMP that we were asked to put together.
and the expectation was that that was like worst case scenario.
That's correct.
So how did this actually come out compared to the preliminary GMP?
So the site work came in over what the pre-GMP is, and that was driven mainly because the site work is the biggest unknown that you have when you go through that process at a very early stage. And I will say we had one sheet that had a finished floor elevation and a site layout that we gave to Rogers and said, tell us how much it's going to be. And all they really had to go on was what we had previously done at R. Brown McAllister, looking at the acreage that was developed and the amount of dirt that was moved, and they made obviously some assumptions. So this package came in higher. The 3 previous packages came in considerably lower. So it all essentially has balanced out to where we are right now. So the remaining 28 bid packages that we'll be opening in the next couple of weeks will really tell us what the overall budget will be for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I know we tried this in email,
Yeah.
and you'll have to explain this to me like a
Sure.
1 hour and 20-minute-year-old or
Sure,
old board
sure.
member. Let me see if I can pull my information here up again. So the bids on this opened on 11/19.
Yes.
I see that in one document, and then in another document I saw that the GMP cost study was completed on 11/22. So were those 2 different things, or was
They
there
are
3
two different.
days
They are
between?
the cost study is kind of the backup documentation for each of the individual bid packages. So we did open the bids on the 19th for site work. Then they roll all those numbers once we've de-scoped with the low bidder, making sure he has everything covered. They insert that into that cost study, and then it gets repopulated and put back out to us, which that's why the date was November 22nd. Because it just came, because once they've gone through that de-scoping, they've got to get all this documentation to me, so then I can provide it to the board clerk in order to upload for the documents.
Okay, so how long were bids open?
How
How long were, if bids opened for the site work on 11/19, how long were they open before you settled on the contractor?
well, so there's no contract in place yet because it has to be
Okay.
approved.
Okay.
Because we have a contract, the board has a contract with Rogers Builders as the construction manager at risk.
Mhm.
Once the amendment is approved and the value is approved, that allows then us to issue a PO to Rogers they can then go into contract with that low bidder.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So when bids opened, we were just getting
We're just getting bids.
that from the construction manager at risk?
That's correct. We all, I mean, we all sit in a room and, they go through and they just cut and open every bid, sit there and
Got
read
it.
them out loud.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? So this is an item we will be voting on next week. So we can either add it to our consent agenda, which means we all agree, we all have enough information to vote on this item that we can vote it as a package, or we want to make it an action item, which we'll individually vote on this particular item. So what is the pleasure of the board? Are we okay with consent on this, or do we want to put it on action? So consent.
For me, I would like the 43-page construction document. I don't need to understand all of that stuff, but having gotten it on Thanksgiving, I really haven't had an opportunity to dive
What
into
have
that
you
at all.
been
So I would love to have a conversation with you
Oh, sure.
about some of that stuff, just to have a little better grasp of what's included in that document.
Yeah.
So I would like to see it on,
Okay, so we
on action.
a board member needs more information, so we'll have that added to the action agenda for next week.
Just let me know what you need.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Appreciate it. Next item is the 2024-25 budget amendment. We'll welcome back Mr. Penn. Budget amendment number 2.
Good evening, thanks again. So unlike the prior agenda item, this one actually does require a formal vote of the board. Once we establish an initial budget, each month we come back, we amend the budget based on additional information, in particular, anything that we've gotten in terms of additional state allotments that have dropped to us, changes that have happened in our federal funding. We literally go fund by fund to make the adjustments to bring it back up to what will now be reflected on the amendment to be a budget of $482,743,966 across all our different funding sources. So what I've typically have done for the board is I've provided just a summary memo which talks about at a high level what each of the changes are by fund. So as an example here, for the state public school fund, you'll see it's a net increase of about almost $2.2 million. $246,000 for the integrated academic behavior systems grant, almost $1.3 million for an additional allotment for exceptional children, particularly the developmental day programs. Allotment of about $600,000 to support early grade reading proficiency. You'll see in Fund 2, which are our local funds, there's a minor reallocation between expense lines, but more importantly, when the board had approved the fund balance appropriation for the $1.3 million for the Chromebooks, which are on the agenda later on this evening, and we will come back and adjust fund number 2 for the appropriation for the ELA curriculum. We have not done that yet because we need to select a vendor first to see how those funds will break down across the estimated cost that the board has already approved. Federal funds number 3, fund number 3, we had a minor adjustment within our Title II grant. Title II grants are used to improve teacher quality. That's the intended purpose for those. The big change this month was in our capital outlay fund. It's an increase of $11.5 million. That's a release of the capital projects from the county related to facilities maintenance, security cameras, smart boards, high capacity fuel tanks. Those are all the items that the LGC had finally made approval to, and you'll see there's an additional one coming for the major construction items as well in a forthcoming amendment. And then lastly, Kids Plus, fund number 7. Kids Plus is one of the 2 funds that operate as what we call an enterprise fund. It looks more like a business than it does a traditional government entity. It's an increase of almost $204,000 to appropriate some of their fund balance to address the salary changes from the recent classified salary study. So if we can roll down to the next page, actually the next 2 pages kind of tie up what we're looking at now. That you see the $482 million plus, both in terms of revenues and expenses. So the budgets remain in balance. This is actually what the new board chair will sign as documentation that we've approved this amendment, should that be the board's pleasure at the next meeting. We can continue down, keep going. The next page is just the signatures, but then what we also try to do is capture by fund what all the changes are across this. This is another way of looking. Now you can go down to the next one, please. It's just a way of re-looking at the same information that's in the cover memo. It just lays it out a little bit more clearly across the different operating funds that we have. So it's an overall increase across all funding sources. If you see in the very last column, $15.1 million. And we can keep moving down if you don't mind. So then what we do is we give actual account codes, and it's just, again, a different way of displaying the same data and capturing it fund by fund. This will be, and you'll see when it talks to the code number, fund number 1 is always our state fund. Fund number 2 will be local. Fund number 3 will be federal. So it's a lot of different ways of looking at what is essentially the same data. But we do try to capture it in that cover memo, so it just highlights for both the board and for the general public what each of the major changes are. And there are a lot of changes that we deal with, particularly from the state. I think we had a total of 85 different allotment changes during the course of the fiscal year last year, and we're certainly on pace to see the same number this year. So anytime that happens, and it necessitates a monthly amendment, that we come back to the board for approval. So that's what you have before you tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Penn on this amendment? Okay, oops, go ahead, Greg.
And this may not be for you, but it's on your item. Anytime I see early grade reading proficiency, it gets my attention.
Okay.
So, do you have any idea what we're spending $600,000 on there?
Not just yet, but I think if there's somebody in the room who can certainly speak to that.
We have a staff member that's willing to help.
Sir, I got it.
Hold on,
So
Mr.
that money,
Go ahead,
that money is for our Read to Achieve, supporting our Read to Achieve initiative, which is mandated by the state. It also supports some of our sub-teachers, our letters program, and our Haggerty program, and our K-1 program there. It also offsets a lot of those expenses for those programs.
Any additional questions for Dr. Kopicki on that?
That's good. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is another one we will vote on next week. Do we want to keep it added to the consent agenda, or we want it separate? Consent. Okay, that'll be added to the consent agenda for next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
So our next item is our student Chromebook purchases, and we have Carl Sang. We'll discuss that with us.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Dr. Kopicki, members of the board and the community. This presentation presents a contract for approval of almost $1.3 million of fund balance towards the purchase of Chromebooks for student use. This funding was approved during the November CCS Board of Ed meeting last month. I wanted to provide some background, many of the same slides that I shared last month, just because we have some new board members and I want to make sure everyone had access to the same information. So what we're hoping to do with this is stay continuous on a 5-year refresh cycle of our student devices. And so this slide presents information about what a refresh cycle is. So a consistent refresh cycle results in budget predictability over a long-term time frame. This results in reduced downtime as we replace devices just before the anticipated end of life. And then of course it promotes increased security as aging hardware often loses support and automatic updates after end of life. We currently provide a 1-to-1 scenario for our students with iPads in kindergarten and first grade and Chromebooks in second grade through 12th grade. We have historically planned for a 4-year refresh cycle. This proposes moving towards a 5-year refresh cycle, which would mean we replace 8,000 devices every school year. For perspective, we have not been replacing 8,000 devices each school year. We bought 5,000 iPads last summer. This purchase would net another 3,000 devices for this school year, getting us 8,000 for the year. Last year we bought 0 devices, and the year before that we bought 4,500 devices. So we're in a little bit of a gap after the last 2 years. Essentially, this purchase of Chromebooks will get us through the remainder of this school year in the current 1-to-1 scenario. This slide gives you some details about the Chromebook purchase. So we're using the state contract, which is the low price of $380 per device. We were allotted $1.3 million. So that $1.3 million will get us 3,213 devices. Again, that gets us around the 8,000 device number that we were hoping to get for this school year. By the time you add in taxes, that comes to $1.299 million. This includes the device itself, white glove service, which is set up in deployment services, a 5-year warranty, and then the Google license. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions to start? Melanie?
Are these Chromebooks for just kindergarten and first grade?
These Chromebooks would be for 2nd through 12th graders. Our specific allocation plan would move towards 6th grade primarily first. We've noticed that middle schoolers are particularly rough on devices. If we push into middle school first, and those students kept their devices as they progress. And then we could pull back what is currently in 6th grade, and that way we would have loaners or devices for repair that we could reallocate across the other grade levels.
So these are a replacement for upper grades?
That's right.
That's what you're talking about.
Pam, you have anything?
No.
Greg?
Yes.
Sam?
You mentioned about 4-year life cycle or refresh versus 5. Besides the money, what is the real ramifications for extending that life one more year?
Extending, so Chromebooks are built to last 3 to 5. So the 5-year refresh cycle is really stretching it as far as you can. You can imagine, as I mentioned, if you give a middle schooler, a 6th grader, a device and expect them to keep it for 5 years, that's a tall order. So we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can be, and we're trying to stretch these as far as we can. Again, that would represent 8,000 devices every single year on a continuous basis. We have not been consistently holding the 8,000 each year. So that is an optimistic and lofty goal.
Anything else, Sam? No, thank you. Catherine, do you have? Mr. Snell, how do you use Chromebooks, or how are they used in your classroom?
So one of the things you're thinking about when you give a kid a Chromebook is that those Chromebooks, they don't usually get carried around. They slosh around in a backpack with whatever else is in there. So that is going to contribute to the lifespan. But in terms of use in the classroom, Chromebooks provide, for me, a very valuable resource in terms of some paper savings, so you can digitize things that might normally be a handout that could be turned into an electronic document. It also gives kids a chance to access typically more interactive features in terms of just having internet access. Opens up opportunities for engagement. Student use of Chromebooks is obviously, if you ask the students, a lot of them would say maybe they have enough time on Chromebooks, but there has to be some kind of delicate balance, I think, as an instructor between over-reliance on Chromebooks and then just general traditional offline interaction. So I think the collective agreement, though, would be for most teachers that Chromebooks expand access and engagement and give you a lot of opportunities that without a Chromebook, as many people have gotten accustomed to having, would be a disservice to lose.
Appreciate that perspective. We actually have 2 students in the room. Either of you have anything that you'd like to add on how your use of Chromebook? Come up to the podium and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Caleb McCarty. I'm a student at Cox Mill. I feel like overall, as a junior, I've been using Chromebooks my whole life, and I feel like that we should be more of like working as finding a different technology, like maybe like a tablet or something of some sorts, just so that we can have that ability to have something, so we can move to having something like a piece of paper, so we can be writing on it, as well as something technology, so that we have a little bit of both in there. But I don't know how prices would work with that, but I feel like we could be looking something towards that as well.
Appreciate your input. Anybody have any questions for Kevin? Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the firewalls? And maybe you're not the one to answer, I don't know.
I'll do my best.
Are the firewalls that we have in place at the schools active on their Chromebooks when they take them home?
Absolutely, yes.
So they are unable to download stuff to their Chromebooks and bring back to school with them?
If they are on a Cabarrus County Schools Chromebook, yes.
Okay.
They're unable to access certain websites, and then of course we're able to monitor which sites students access. So if there's something inappropriate, you can imagine students find new websites that need to be disabled. As those issues arise, we're able to limit those as well.
And how is that updated? How do you monitor that?
So I have a team of engineers that specifically monitors those firewalls. We have a series of cybersecurity platforms that alert us to, and that's less about, there's multiple versions of dangerous websites, right? So one type of dangerous website is a website that creates a hole in our security network where bad actors could get into our network, for instance. So we have cybersecurity platforms like Arctic Wolf that are constantly providing us information about which websites to block. We also have a safety team, for instance, that notified us just this month about a new platform, a new application that students are accessing, and they're using that for nefarious purposes. And so our team was notified about that, and we're in the process of shutting it down. So sometimes it's hearsay, sometimes it's one of our software security methods that informs those sites.
So we know kids are smart today to get around that stuff. Do you find that there is an increase in them being able to get around those kind of things? Have you seen more things being brought to your attention?
Respectfully, I'm not sure how to answer that. There's part of that is my limited time in this role. Okay. So I've been in this role for 6 months. We have some very bright and capable students that I'm sure are constantly, I mean, you would be surprised at some of the things they're trying to do. Oftentimes it's not that they're trying to do anything nefarious or ill-willed. A lot of times they're just trying to access the internet in a different way. And it's kind of like whack-a-mole. You close those loopholes as soon as you open them. But we have some very bright students that find interesting ways to solve problems. It's probably the nicest way I can put it.
Thank you.
Any last comments? Okay, so this again is an item we will be voting on next week for the purchase of the Chromebooks for $1.3 million. So do we have enough information that we're comfortable putting it on consent, or do we want it on action? Consent. We're okay for consent. Okay, that'll be on our consent agenda for next week. And then our last item to review for next week is the Promethean Interactive Panel purchase.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, Dr. Kopicki, members of the board and the community. This presentation requests appropriation of $1.3 million towards the purchase of Promethean boards for classroom use. These funds were approved by the county commissioners specifically for this purchase, so I'm bringing you the contract that won the 3-bid process. So I want to provide some background about why we're going through this, and then what a Promethean panel does, and then provide some background about why this was the winning bid and what the bid allows us to do. So part of our strategic plan is Priority 5, which refers to technology enhanced learning. The goal is to transform student learning through the selection of high-quality digital learning resources aligned with standards to assist our teachers in creating authentic learning experiences. Specifically, Objective 3 of this goal includes monitoring and evaluating infrastructure changes and evaluating system upgrades. This also includes evaluating system needs for replacement and upgrade of hardware and software systems. The Cabarrus County Schools Board of Ed approved this $1.3 million budget request specifically with the express purpose of bringing our classroom technology up to speed by replacing many of our outdated devices. Our TV screens and interactive panels have not been systematically refreshed in recent memory, so this funding was specifically targeted towards replacing outdated technology in a systematic and equitable manner to align with the strategic priority. Our current Cabarrus County classrooms have a multitude of different screens. So this could be, we have some interactive panels, and so those interactive panels could be Promethean panels, like what I'm asking for the purchase of right now. It could be smart boards with a projector. In a different lifetime, when I was a high school math teacher, I had a smart board with a projector. We still have some of those in our classrooms right now. We also have smart panels. So this teacher in this picture is using a smart panel, which is an upgrade over a smart board, but it does not have some of the features of a Promethean panel. We also have classrooms with non-interactive screens. So that means that it could just be a TV or a projector that a teacher either casts to or directly connects to. In those options, there is no limited or no interactivity at all. The teacher is literally typically just showing slides or they're showing multimedia presentations, but there's no interaction with the screen and the students. I was a high school math teacher, and so my ability to work out problems in front of students was an important feature in a high school math class. If you don't have an interactive panel, your ability to do that is mitigated. In our current classrooms, we have 256 Prometheans currently in Cabarrus County school classrooms. I should mention that the technology department has purchased one for each school. That one is typically placed somewhere where a lot of students can access it, like a media center. Otherwise, schools have been purchasing these boards on their own accord with the funding that they have. The way that's worked out is schools that are Title I have Title I funds that they can use towards Promethean panels. Other schools have their own school funds that they can use towards Promethean panels. But what that ended up happening is we have 8 schools with about 200 of those Promethean panels, and the remainder of our schools are sharing the other 56 panels. What this purchase does is it provides a floor where more students are able to access these interactive panels on a regular basis. Many of our schools only have 1 or 2 in the building, and again, typically that's in a media center. And that's just because we haven't holistically and whole scale been purchasing classroom devices for screen technology. Schools, when we reached out to them last spring, they specifically indicated a desire for interactive panels in K-5 classrooms, specifically in math classrooms, and specifically in EC classrooms. The fact that we have so many schools that are spending their limited school funds on these panels, I feel like is further indication that this is something that our teachers want, that our staff wants, and that our students need to have. What a Promethean panel does is this supports active engagement by enabling interactive and collaborative learning experiences. This allows teachers to create dynamic lessons using multimedia resources. There are built-in apps such as Annotate, Spinner, and Screen Share that encourage active participation. Screen Share allows anyone that the teacher gives the ability to share their own screen, for instance. So if a student is working out a problem, they can cast up onto the screen and the whole class can examine that student's project or work or presentation. This allows teachers to share their screen with the class, fostering visual and hands-on learning and providing opportunities for group problem solving and feedback, and of course allows the teacher to move around the classroom, interact with students directly, and adapt to different learning styles, creating a more inclusive and engaging environment. The long-term impact and investment in interactive panels allows schools to provide intentional instruction towards diverse student needs, promotes 21st century learning environments, prepares students for technology-driven futures, and then of course aligns with the district goals for academic excellence. As I mentioned, the funding for Prometheans has already been appropriated as a capital project. The basis for this project was that we've had no sustainable plan for replacing classroom audiovisual equipment. As schools have been responsible for the majority of these replacements, we have had inequity among schools in what types of interactive boards our schools and students are able to access. The goal would be a recurring annual capital funds for a planned refresh of 7 to 10 years. I wanted to provide, I inserted this slide. You may not have seen it. I just inserted this afternoon. I apologize that I had not put this before, but I wanted some background on what the 3 bids were. So we followed a 3-bid process this summer. Encore, Camcore, and CDWG were the 3 vendors that submitted bids. Encore came in with the lowest bid, mostly because of their install price. As we got closer and closer towards the end of the year, obviously we didn't have this funding until it was just approved in the last month, and they kept providing us promotional offers. They offered us a promotional offer that if we purchased by the end of this quarter, meaning this month, we could actually get a price of $3,153.22 per panel. So not only was this the lowest bid, but we're actually coming in about 15% lower than that, which means we can buy 15% more panels. So this would represent 461 panels across our school district. That would be about 10 panels per school. We would allocate that, not just 10 panels per school, but we would try to allocate those in the most fair way possible. You can see that this comes with the 75-inch active panel, the 5-year on-site support. They would remove the existing equipment and install and then provide a cable. So 461 panels is what we could purchase with $1.3 million. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? Melanie?
Okay, you mentioned there's some schools that have more of these than others. So how are you planning to distribute the newer ones that come in? Will there be some kind of, are we going to go for the, I mean, do you have a plan for
Yes,
that?
ma'am. So I presented this morning to Cabinet our plan. I'll be sharing it with principals tomorrow. Obviously, it's all pending that we purchase them. I did not want to get too far in front of sharing the plan until the funding was approved, which was just last month. The last thing you want to do is start promising principals that they'll be getting these Promethean panels, and then the funding doesn't actually come through. So it's a twofold part. One part would be based on average daily membership, which is how many students each school has. The other part will be funded based on the current needs of the school. So when you walk through some of our schools, if you were at Rise, you saw at J.M. Robinson High School, they have a lot of smart board projectors, for instance, that are incredibly dated. And then we have other schools that were just built last year. Our Brown McAllister was built, and every single classroom, as this screen shows, was outfitted with a Promethean board. So we'll be asking principals to submit a survey that details what they currently have in their classrooms. They'll probably work with their instructional technology facilitator to complete that survey, and then provide if there's any other information. But what do they currently have in their buildings? Which classes are they hoping to outfit with Promethean boards? And then what other piece of information do we need to know as we're making this decision? So one part based on ADM, and then one part based on school needs.
Pam?
And based on the desire for K through 5 math classes and EC, will those also be factored into? I think I would just like to see all the EC classrooms have a priority if they can see the need.
What my original plan was to allocate 2 schools and then allow those principals to make that decision. That is helpful feedback.
Okay.
Greg?
How old is do you know how old the oldest smart boards that we have are?
I do not know that. I can find out that. I know.
I'm just curious, did we get 7 to 10 years out of those or not?
We may be able to get 7 to 10 years out. I know there are classrooms. I was in a classroom in the last week where the classroom was presenting on a smartboard projector, and the majority of the class would not have been able to see the screen just because of the dimness of the bulb.
Sure.
I was teaching in the year 2014 on a smartboard projector in another district, so those are certainly nearing end of life, if not already end of life.
So as a math teacher, can you sort of explain to me how a smartboard is $3,000 better than a whiteboard?
Sure. So I think part of it is the ability for students to be able to cast their own work up. So if I'm a high school math teacher or a middle school math teacher right now, and I have all of my students working on problems on their desk, or on they're sharing ideas on a Chromebook, or they're creating presentations, I can intentionally move around the room and watch students work either individually in groups on a problem, and I'm going to pick out the 3 students that I want the rest of the class to see that work. This is the right way to do it. This is maybe a common misconception, and this one is a novel approach that maybe just takes too long to work out that problem. And I'm going to ask all 3 of those students, do you mind if I share that work with the rest of the classroom? And then I'm going to ask that student to cast, and I'm going to walk up, all right, class, let's look at Billy's work. What did Billy do that was good? What did Billy do that maybe, what do you guys think about how he approached this problem? But you can allow students to cast their own work up onto the board, where we can give feedback in real time, where they can give feedback to each other. There's also the interactivity component. So this would be a major component in K-5, but I would use it as a high school math teacher. You can put interactive pieces into these lessons where you can manipulate the graph, for instance. You can move pieces up and down across the board. Students can come up and touch the screen, and it moves different parts around the way you would use an iPad, for instance. So our students come to school touching an iPad and expecting things to move, and they're often surprised when they see a computer screen where the things don't move because it's not a touch screen. That was probably where a lot of the EC questions came into play. And then there's also, there's ways that teachers can annotate on the board where they've projected the work, they annotate, they can save all of those results. So if we have 3 students that are out sick today, we've worked out our problem on the board, I've annotated and marked it up, I capture that as the teacher, and then I can save that to a file and send it to the students that are out sick. Obviously, if you're working on a whiteboard, a lot of that's impossible.
Okay.
I hope those are just 3 examples, but
Yeah,
obviously there's
it.
multitudes of other examples that you could use with an interactive.
Sure, and I'm sure it's different in different classes. I just wanted to hear from your experience.
Sure.
Also, this is just a follow-up from the email.
Sure.
You said software support is typically 5 years from the release date, and this model is 2 years old.
Yep.
So is it possible that our 5-year service contract will still be running when software updates are no longer supported on the devices? And how does that then translate to 7 to 10 years possible life out of the device?
Sure. So I reached out to our salesperson, and they said that the support is guaranteed at least 5 years from the initial release date. That is a Google statement. They want to guarantee some date, but what's typically happened is it's actually been supported for much longer. The example that they used is we're looking at an active panel 9. The active panel 7, so 2 versions prior, was released in 2019, and it's still being supported through the year 2031. So that's got a 12-year support. I would anticipate this. I don't have any reason to believe that this would not have a similar level of support.
Gotcha, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Sam, you got anything?
No, thank you.
Catherine? Caleb, you want to add anything to that? All right, again, this is another one that we will be voting on next week. So do we have enough information, or does anybody need any more information, or do you want to put it on consent or actions? So right here, thoughts? Consent, we have a consent? Okay, down here, consent? Okay, we'll add it to the consent agenda for next week. So those were our discussion items for next week. We do. Thank you, Mr. Sain. We do have a need for a closed session, and the closed session is essentially a confidential discussion, but you can only go in a closed session for certain reasons, and they have to be in the general statute, and I need to let you know what they are for. So I'll read this. I'll need a motion and a second for that. So I need a motion for that the board convene in closed session to consult an attorney and preserve the current attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A3, and also including the cases involving 1 Hunter Hoskins Quinones and 2 Catherine Gillage as guardian ad litem for AC, and to consider confidential personal matters pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A6.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Treadway.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mills. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we will be moving into closed session. We'll have a 10-minute recess, so say 8 o'clock.